I'm well aware of the negative image of a doctor that recommends his patients to smoke. It sounds horrible, but I think cannabis through the lungs acts very differently than cannabis which is taken orally or in another manner.
I used this cream on him just at my worst case scenario kind of thing, and treated him at noon, and he messaged me at 6 p.m. that night to say, like, I'm still not in any pain.
For me, I prescribe for my patient to give outside Morocco the CBD as full spectrum, 3,000 milligram or 2,000 milligram for some have pain of cancer, and the follow-up is very good.
It's Reefer Madness, the podcast with Trevor and Kirk.
Kirk, we're back.
Hey, Trevor, how's it going?
I am doing well. As we we're just sort of mentioning in the preamble, this was Country Fest weekend just wrapped up, so another year, another megastar named Jelly Roll swings through the town.
I spent my time in Onino watching the storms. This is storm time for our region in the center of the continent. Anyways, I'm Kirk Nyquist. I'm the registered nurse, and we are Reefer Madness, the podcast.
I'm Trevor Schufelt, the pharmacist, and for this story, you were a little farther west in and around the Edmonton area, and this is going to be kind of a, without, giving spoilers, it's hard to make money if you are in the business of cannabis.
Yeah, you just gave away the punchline.
No. I think people should be, like our guest said, someone had slipped into his DMs and asked him, "Hey, I want to grow cannabis." His first piece of advice: don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah. So this is a story that came from my road trip back in April. I took Van Hood out to the West Coast and gathered some road stories as I went. And on my way home, I stopped in Edmonton to meet my cannabis nurse friend, Kayla Knutzlin, and she took me around. Edmonton, and I met a bunch of her colleagues, all within the cannabis field. And this is us visiting a company called New Life Canna Limited, and essentially this business, they're known as 3 or 4 firemen from Fort McMurray. I think it was initially 3 firemen from Fort McMurray wanted to do something different, and they started a cannabis business. Now, I knew nothing of this, Trevor, when I was introduced to this gentleman. Kayla basically drove me around, pointed out some cannabis history in Edmonton, and we pulled into this industrial park. Next door there's a pickleball court, and next door to that there's other industrial stuff, and basically you're going in to these businesses, and it's long, narrow buildings, and you go down a narrow driveway, you pull in front, and nondescript doorway, you walk in, and it's a long and narrow building, or long and narrow business within a building, growing cannabis. Now, New Life has several businesses, and this I didn't understand when I first walked in, and it didn't make sense to me until after I learned more about his business. So I'm going to tell the audience some things they need to know that'll make the conversation a little bit more interesting. Besides being a micro-cultivationer, like cultivators, they grow cultivators. Yes, they grow their own cannabis at a micro level. They got a micro license. New Life Canna Limited also has a micro packaging sales license. So in the conversation, we hear how they were getting cannabis from British Columbia, packaging that cannabis and sending it to Ontario. So they're not only growing cannabis, they're also packaging cannabis for other growers, which I guess I want to talk about after the conversation as well.
Sure.
So that's the introduction to the conversation.
Okay, so the gentleman you're talking to most of the time is Robert Raposo. Should we just let him introduce himself?
Yeah, and also thank you for that. And also Kayla's in there. So again, there's three voices, and you'll hear Kayla in there at the end of the conversation as well. And so let's just go right into it, and then come out and discuss what we learned about the cannabis business.
All right.
My name's Rob. I'm one of the co-founders, owner, operator, wearing 15 hats of New Life Canna Limited. So we're based in Edmonton. We have a 6,000 square foot facility, and our forward-facing brand is West Coast Gas, and holy smokes. So me and a couple other guys, we're all career firefighter-paramedics. We thought this would be a good idea in about 2020. So they'd previously been in the BC housing market. They were building some houses, sold at the wrong time, poor guys. And they had some business ideas, and they were kind of asking me about the regulations and stuff. And it kind of just progressed from there. It was really interesting because I had a coffee business. So Justin had actually said, hey, do you think that I could grow weed in the basement and then sell it on Etsy? Like, legitimate question. We both were like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you can. And obviously you can't. So then that just kind of went us down the road. And then, like, I feel like a week or two later, Justin was looking at places because he was in Calgary at the time, like acreage or rural properties. Like, hey, can we build a farm here? And can we do it? And we were looking at zoning. And then we went down the rabbit hole. And I think at the time, weed was still going for like over $3 a gram, or so we believe. Like, we don't actually know. But so it's still a very viable business. And it just launched us down this pathway that took us, like, I think 2.5 years from inception to actually get a license.
Did any of you grow before you opened it?
So one of us did.
Okay.
Yeah. One of us had grown two of us had grown medically, but like nothing large scale.
Right.
So there was some experience, but then we met some guys who'd been growing for a very long time, and that was really what actually allowed us to do this, because like we at no point were thinking we were going to be growers and just bang it out of the park, but we were listening to the guys that had done it, and the guys that helped us build our facility, Bloom, they guided us very heavily on what to do, and then we were able to take what they taught us and then through the people and just kind of be like, well, what's real, what's not, what works in our facility, what's bro science, what's real, and then just kind of figure it all out. And that's what we've done from the beginning. It's been an absolute bath of fire.
Out of the three partners, is one or two of them the growers now?
So the way that it worked in the beginning...
Who's the master grower? Yeah.
So in the beginning, it was all of us switching hands. One of our guys was a master grower. We kind of would flip off, but we were like working shift on and shift off. So there's like one or two guys on and one or two guys off. And then we would alternate, and then the guys on days off would just take care of whatever.
Right.
And so the way it progressed, though, is that we were able to actually get some people to help us trim, so it wasn't just me sitting there with my wife trimming for 8 hours and like going blind. So then one of our trimmers, Ryan, showed some interest in cultivation, and then he is the master grower now. It was it was Chris, and then it was Justin, and now it's Ryan, and he truly is in cultivation. And then Jesse, who you just saw in there, is our processing guy, so he does all of the packaging and the sorting and the curating of our weed, because like, I am a lightweight, so I'm definitely not your best gauge of all of the strains out there, whereas these guys are. So we bring a lot of our sampling in, and if it doesn't pass their tests, and again, it's subjective, so we, Jesse and Ryan have different tastes, so we take their opinion, and I have a couple people that I'm always giving stuff to, kind of have them classified, and then that allows us to kind of build the brand off of other people's weed, our weed, how we're curing it, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so you're growing on site, you're packaging on site.
Correct.
And your West Coast Gas is your SKU. So how many strains, varietals do you have under West Coast Gas?
So we have pretty much all rotating, and that's just because that's the only way that we can truly survive. And so what a rotating SKU is that it means that it's a certain percentage in a certain profile that it can kind of fit in. So like, for example, the old school fuel will only put Death Bubba, Rockstar, the old school stuff. Exotics is way more open. You can put a Grape Diamonds in, which, is Jesse's strain that he came up with there, and the LA Guava. You can put a lot more stuff in it, but it's a typical profile. So if someone goes to Exotics, they know the avenue they're getting.
Okay.
But we are in BC, but it's not our weed in BC. We're buying it from BC growers and selling it for them, because that's just what works.
And they send you the weed by bulk.
Correct. Yeah.
And then you package it here under your font.
Yeah.
Or your packaging.
Yeah.
So I noticed actually you have strains. So you do list the strain.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when if someone says, "Hey, I like the West Coast Gas and I really enjoyed your last strain," there's a potential they could not get this strain back.
That's correct. Yeah. Because and actually, there's been even times where we had some grown. It was a Tropicana mints. And so only one store in BC got it, and it was a limited run, and at the end of it, the genetics were killed here and the genetics were killed in BC. It was never intentional, it just started going woody, and we just but it was really sad because a lot of people really liked it.
Yeah.
But it's just a one and done.
Right.
It's done. And so the way that so we have a bunch of genetics, and then the guys in BC that we're working with have some genetics as well. So it really depends on what we're growing, but the market dictates, obviously.
Right.
We like to have options, though. So, so anyways, we're selling in BC under the direct delivery mark. Alberta, we're under the central. Alberta's been the hardest by far. And then Ontario, we're under flow through. And what that means is basically, rather than stocking it, they put our stuff on sale for a week. And then on the Monday night, we have to have it delivered to the warehouse on Wednesday. So our partner, Lori, in Ontario, is the only way that we can do that. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's under West Coast Gas.
It is, correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Actually, West Coast Gas has taken off mostly in Ontario.
Okay,
So,
Ontario,
yeah.
BC, and Alberta is where you
Correct.
sell.
And then we are in the process of getting into Manitoba. It's just been logistically frustrating. So.
Okay, well, welcome to Manitoba. But New Life Canna, that's the umbrella.
Yeah, so New
business.
Life Canna Limited is technically the processor, so it's the license holder is what they
Okay.
call it in the industry. So we are probably going to go under the New Life brand at some point, especially medically. We were definitely thinking the New Life brand. Something we're learning a lot too is that a lot of people distinguish the brands more with the people in the process as opposed to the branding, because we're not quite in that big world of marketing where the brand is being pushed on you. The brand really is us, right? It's me, it's Jesse, it's Ryan, it's Justin, it's Pete. It's the people that are involved in it. Yeah, see you later, man. And so when we're like finding that out, it really has kind of changed how we look at the branding. And honestly, we love what we do, and we have a very hands-off approach because the bud really doesn't get touched. But we love it. But the thing is, there's a lot of other cultivators out there who are much like us, dying and not able to make it, and having struggling to get to the market. And there's a lot of predatory people out there. And so what we're trying to find is, where can we find the win-wins? Where can we find this guy needs to sell it and we need to buy it, and we both win. That's all we really want.
And it's good weed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that there is a lot of other cultivators out there growing absolutely banger weed. So.
Well, an example here, we're sitting at a table, and there are 4 jars of cannabis buds, and I don't think I've ever touched cannabis buds so dense, right? So these are all commercial weeds. This one here, LA Guava, that's yours.
Correct, yeah.
And this grape Demont,
Great Diamonds. Yeah.
Great Diamonds.
Yeah.
That is from.
That's this particular one is ours, but we also both have these cultivars in BC as well.
Okay.
BC grows, yeah.
So, but you grew this one.
But
here?
these specific ones are ours, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just nice. And then these are the banana cheesecake.
The banana cheesecake is oddly enough from another firefighter from Vancouver Island. His name's Riley,
that's
and
amazing.
he is killing it.
That is really amazing.
The smell, the nose on that one is
Yeah.
unbelievable. And then the follow-up is cheese. And people have been asking us for cheese. And so we tried to get some cheesy poofs. None of them took off. But this was the cheese that we're bringing. And we're going to try and find the dirtiest cheese we can find and grow that next.
So then this is sent to you by a couple kilos from BC?
Yeah, so I think his final was just under 4. And honestly, the fact that it finished this way, and I'll have to show you the COA. The COA is bonkers because... Not that we need to get into terpene testing yet, but a lot of terpene testing.
Oh, yeah?
So this one, the place he sent it, I believe, only tests for 25 terpenes.
Yeah.
Riley literally just picked a handful of buds, hucked it out, did a test, right? There was no doctoring, no nothing. This is his first time. And he got right out the gate at 30%. And then he got a 3-point-something percent terpene. I can't remember, but it was like 2.5% myrcene.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Mercy,
So I'll show you.
that's
I'll
a
show you
lot.
the. It is. It's crazy.
So
and
this is
again,
a complete knockout.
so, and again, it is crazy because I see so many COAs now, and you see the amount of stuff that's in it and the increased amount, and then what actually has percentages and what doesn't, and it is just so cool. And this is also living soil organic because he's on the island, so clearly
Right.
he's a hippie.
Yeah,
and it is grown so naturally, so wonderfully on his farm. It's amazing.
You can tell
and
that.
he
You can
and he
tell it
genetically
looking and smelling it.
yes.
Yeah.
And then wait till you smoke it.
So this then you'll package under the West Coast Gas,
Correct.
under your rotating SKU.
Yes.
And what
in
we-
BC, so what has to
In
happen
B-
in
oh,
BC?
in British
'cause-
Columbia.
So I can sell this elsewhere, but
Yeah.
the way that it works in BC, which gave us a bit of a delay because he was a new cultivator, so the cultivator has to register with BCLDB to be an approved cultivator for
Okay.
direct delivery because you can't be too big and you have to be registered. So once you're good there, then as long as you're selling their product, you can apply for SKUs and they don't gatekeep it. So BC is just like, what SKU do you want? Yeah, we don't care because you're controlling it. They're not stocking it. So you want to ask for the most ludicrous SKU, like a 2.6 gram bag, like you can do that.
Wow.
And then you just have to go through, like on our end, it's the same regardless, but we have the brand as West Coast Gas, but we could have put it as whatever else. We could have put it as Emerald Farms. Like that's his cultivar name. Going out the gate, we put him under the West Coast Gas brand, but I can very much see us going under his brand because he's doing amazing things.
Oh, yeah.
Great story behind it.
Oh, it's the best. I mean, he literally slid into my DMs on Instagram and was like, hey, man, I want to grow weed. And I was like, don't do it. And then, like most firefighters, he didn't listen. And so, here we are with his banger-ass weed.
This is
And
beautiful.
and it's amazing weed. So tell me a little bit about. I was in Hope, and I went to Marley's Den, and the young lady there told me, and she's been there forever. I've interviewed her before.
Yeah.
She said in British Columbia, the government will sometimes just say we're not doing that SKU anymore.
Yes, and so that's okay. So in BC, they have more options. They have farmgate, they have direct delivery, and they have centralized delivery. Really good model, something we've been hinting at very much to the AGLC. I know they're looking at it because direct delivery allows me to go sell to Nick at Sherwood Park Spirit Leaf, right? Like directly, and you build that relationship.
Yeah.
We don't have that here. All we have is centralized warehousing. So in BC or Alberta, if you're centralized warehouse, it's great because you can put in big volumes. If you sell big volumes, they also pay you relatively quick, be it 14 or 30 days. I believe it's 14 for Alberta and Ontario. But the problem with that is they control the SKU, so they tell you whether it's good or not. And if they pay you and your stuff doesn't sell, when it times out or gets close to timing out, which I think dried flower is 9 months in both the provinces, they basically go, here's your weed, give me the money back.
Oh, wow.
And if you've paid excise on it, you can get it refunded, but you gotta, like, typically people's cash flows aren't great. So when they get the weed and the weed's gone and they get the money, they are trying to build their business.
Sure.
So,
Especially for 9 months.
yeah. And then you get shitty old weed back that you can't sell.
Yeah.
And then if you want to get anyway, so that is, and then they also control the SKU, so they choose what works. So it's unfortunate because hearing some of the retailers at Stratcan were saying like, "Hey, these 5 SKUs worked amazing, and I was selling cases and cases of it," but they're not doing hundreds and hundreds because they're maybe a 1 or 2 or 3 store chain. So then to the government, they have certain metrics, and I know that BC and Alberta work off of metrics, but Ontario is insane. Ontario is like next level metrics. They have everything, and you basically are graded with a score. So you really have to like not have returns, not have issues, not have delivery problems, or when you're applying for SKUs or trying to do other things, you can't get them. So it's a whole other level. But a lot of the times they do like the bottom percentage of whatever they choose gets delisted. So Ontario does it. Alberta does it, and BC will do it. There's a little more leniency in Alberta. BC, I believe they have a cap on SKUs, so they won't bring in any more. So one has to drop off for one to come on. Okay. And they're very much BC promoting as well, which I don't blame them. I think it's a great thing. It just sucks when you're an Alberta cultivar.
They just went through a strike, right?
The strike was pure chaos for us because we had direct delivery weed. So we were actually sitting on a bunch of BC weed that we weren't really selling all that well. And we were like, what are we going to do with this? Can we sell it in another province? What are we going to do? We don't know. And when that strike happened, since these poor retailers have gone through this shit before, the guys that already knew what was happening were like on the phone with us, and we were working 24 hours a day trying to get out. But the problem is you're sending to each store.
Right.
And then you have to invoice each one. So, like, that's where centralized is great because you give it to them. It's the whole centralized process is done. It goes out to whoever on their...
But the centralized only works for the big growers, right?
I think it works more for big volume. Again, everyone's a little bit different. But, like, for us, central is okay. Direct delivery also is okay. But it's also really hard when you get the volume of what happened in the strike. But it was nice because, like... Adam from Microcraft, another guy that we grow with there, or that he's in Coldstream, he took a hit on his price, and then we took a hit on our price, and then we were able to give it to retailers to fill one of the SKUs we already had, because BC was close, so you couldn't get more SKUs.
Right.
But if you had one, you could sell it, so we were able to actually fill, because the value market, nobody could get it, because most of the direct delivery stuff is craft, right? Okay. So it was crazy. The strike was insane, but what happened after that, like, I think we did $200,000 in the month, but then basically didn't sell another gram of weed until like February into BC because it messed up the market so much. But it was super cool to be a part of, to experience. But the poor fucking retailers, it was like trying to get like tickets at a concert event. They're calling up, and we were trying our best to do it, and we fucked over a few of them, not intentionally, but it was just like getting all these orders in, and then you just take the first 5 guys and you do it, and you're like, oh my god, we're out of weed. What do we do? I promised it to 7 people, and then they're like, why didn't you send my way? And they're dying on the other end because they need to keep their doors open.
Sure.
And so it was an interesting experience, but it was really unfortunate because it shows how much power is in a body if they can shut down. And it was actually kind of scary. And we talked to the AGLC about it later. We said, well, what's going to happen if Connect Logistics, who's the logistics provider for AGLC, does that? And they said, no, we have a few other things in place. They didn't go into great detail, but they said that can't technically happen here because we have a different process.
Okay.
So,
But how a change like that can completely change the supply chain. And then your retailer and your person getting their medicine, the grower, everybody gets fucked over.
And the really unfortunate part is we talked, and so we met a lot of great people through the process, which was probably one of the benefits for it. And we could help a few things here and there. And it wasn't even that we made money because there was a lot of losses and learnings. And anyways, it was cool, but it was really sad to hear, especially people where they said, hey, there's a lot of seniors around here and they literally can't afford the craft stuff and there's no value stuff left. So they can't get their medicine. They can't get anything. So it was kind of sad to know that it could just affect like that. And then some of these poor retailers too, like guys that hadn't been in business for a really long time, they didn't experience the last strike, so they weren't quite prepared. So we had to onboard them. We had to do all the things. Whereas the other guys, Gary from Local and some other guys in BC, they knew exactly what to do. The guys from THC had gone through it before. They were on it. They were so calculated, but they must have some serious backup planning. But it sucks that you have to go to that far as to have another supply chain for your product, right? So.
Well, I was thinking about the SKU thing, going back to the SKU thing. When a government says, well, we're going to cancel that SKU, they don't do that in the liquor industry.
No.
Right? You can always get a Jameson's. They're not going to say all of a sudden, oh, Jameson's, you can't put that whiskey here anymore. So what is it about the cannabis?
I don't know, and it is a very hard part about the centralized listing is that they are gatekeeping. And it's really, really shitty because if I talk to a retailer, let's just use Spirit Leaf again, right? If Spirit Leaf Assured Product tells me, I have this super niche thing, you guys have it, could we sell it? It would really work for both of us. I can't do that because on the volume scale, it won't work, so AGLC won't give me the list.
Right.
And then I can't just go drop it off at his house, and I can't just go drop it off at the store. It needs to be in the system. It needs to be excised. It needs to have all those regulatory things, which really sucks because I know people get mad when you talk about cannabis as CPG. I think it's CPG. I think it's regulated CPG, but it's very close to consumer packaged goods. And but if you go to the grocery store, so I'll use my coffee company for example. When I was in Sobeys, it was just hey, what do you want to sell? And I was like, I want to sell these, and they're like, cool, here's your SKUs. And you get it, and you sell it, and then you're like, hey, this one isn't working as well. I don't want that, but I want to add another one. They're like, sure.
So you have that relationship.
You have the relationship. You have the freedom. They weren't really gatekeeping. They would suggest, hey, this is too high priced or this could sell better, but they didn't gatekeep because when I wanted to come out with a seasonal offering, they were like, oh, we don't like seasonal offering because if they don't sell, then we sit on the product. And I was like, oh, well, I'll only just bring in a case a week then. And they're like, okay, cool. And they just sign. And they were basically if you think it'll work, we'll sign on for it, right?
You could get creative. You
can do what most brands need to do, and this came up yesterday in Stratcan as well.
You're growing your brand,
and you're growing the retailer's brand, right? And that's the thing is that it's really hard because it's so disjointed that it's really hard for anyone to grow, and then the cash flows all over the place, and you can't really do the seasonal offerings because, for example, AGLC shortened the window, but it still takes a couple months to do it. So right now we're applying for the fall, this winter SKUs, the Christmas SKUs. So unless we have our shit in order now and know what I can get down the pipe, really, really hard to make work. And then the retailer also has to know when it's going to drop, have the cash flow to be able to do it. And in Alberta, it's interesting. If you put, say, 200 cases on the board, but 300 people order it, nobody actually knows what they're going to get because it goes to a lottery system. And then some retailers don't actually get it. And I believe if they don't get it, they don't get anything in space of that order. They can't just go back and be like, oh, I'm going to fill it in with, with sugar stuff or with somebody else's stuff. They can't do that. So it really is kind of a gamble for a retailer to be like, oh, West Coast Gas, those guys are cool. I'm going to try that seasonal brand or whatever. And then they'll be like, oh, no, because if I don't get it, then I have a vacancy, then I can't fill it and I can't sell it. So it's like...
So you can't even enjoy your local weed. Like,
yes, and that's the interesting thing is that like so many people support local. Nobody really knows how to support local in cannabis, but it's also interesting because nobody really like we're not able to communicate in an appropriate way that this is even local. I mean, we didn't do ourselves any favors calling it West Coast gas. There's some miscommunication in that, and we're not trying. But the lineage of the brand and the genetics and everything is West Coast. That's where it came from. But it's really hard to be like because you can't just put on it like, hey, it's Edmonton weed. They did EGLC did do the local, there was an Alberta campaign they did. I can't remember the name of it on the top of my head, but it's okay. But like, I don't feel the consumer got it. Like, it wasn't a push on the consumer level. I don't know what would work, but it's really hard to.
Farmgate would allow you to have a local brand, right?
So Farmgate's an interesting topic because there is Farmgate in Alberta now. They just came out with it. Guerrilla Gardens in Okotoks is doing it. He's the only one, the one and only, and they got a great thing going. But it's interesting because where we're situated, I don't really want people to come here. I'm not set up for it.
You can just go next door to the pickle after they're done pickleball.
There you go.
Buy the Reefer.
Yeah. So it would put so much logistic strain on our network and increase the ability for people to find us, to break in, to have to staff it, to all of these different things.
But doesn't
right?
Farmgate also mean that if you wanted to sell it to a farmer's market, you could go to the Edmonton farmer's market?
No. So Farmgate is
the
out of the
front
thing.
door.
The only thing that Farmgate means, well, not the only thing, but what it means is essentially if your cultivation is in the appropriate area for it, and you can create the front of your store like they put it to the retail store standard, right?
Okay.
If you can create the front of this store as a retail store during your certain hours, you can have people come in and buy the weed that you grow at your farm
In the backyard.
Yes, and which is cool in theory. There's a lot of like when it came out, it was. I'm glad the AGLC is progressive in it, and it was super cool. We weren't excited about it because we knew we weren't going to do it.
Yeah. But
it's also hard. We're in the middle of a nowhere industrial area. There is a bit of traffic here and there, but like I don't know if the parents from the indoor play park are going to come over here after they drop their kids and come and buy weed from me when they can just go to their local dispensary. Right. And there's some good to it. Direct delivery though would be amazing in Alberta, but I think we're going to get there. Things are moving relatively fast as the red tape is coming down. Never fast enough for me. It's going to be, but it just sucks to watch people die as the changes are in place.
Yeah.
Especially with excise.
Yeah, and like with showing Kirk around here in like Edmonton area, I was like starting to go through my contacts. I'm like, they're gone. They're gone. They're gone. Okay. Like
everybody we started with, except for
Alberta buds are gone?
Yeah, oh yeah, they're gone, yeah. Yeah, everybody except for Keenan and Jamie and Token are gone.
So there are how many growers in Alberta now then?
Oh, in Alberta, I think on the board they were showing yesterday the numbers. I can't remember. I want to say it was 40 or 50.
Okay,
they were active.
LPs growing.
Yes.
Okay.
But I want to say that there's a large chunk of them also that are not selling in Alberta. So I don't know. The numbers are very skewed too, because even if you look at license holders on the Health Canada website, there is like I think a third of them that aren't even active.
Okay.
So it's hard, and it sucks to see people die. Well, these regulations could change it, and don't get me wrong. Like, we're all learning business. There's things we did wrong that's our own fault. Like, I'm not blaming the government and saying they have to change things, but there is a lot of things I think that could work. Even if you just looked at granting or funding, everything that we apply for, we're immediately cut out of because we're cannabis. In fact, we went for one grant, and it was very small, and it was like research or something like that. We're like, oh, we could get a couple grants to do some research for lighting, and that would help us out, blah, blah, blah. It said exempt industries were payday loan places, casinos, strip clubs, massage parlors, and cannabis.
Oh, jeez.
So that's what we're lumped in with.
You villain, you.
Yes. So, it's hard.
First responder to villain.
Yes, exactly. I know it's a very, very quick change, but we did get approved for one program, which is super cool. We got approved for the U of A Venture Mentorship Program, so we have 3 kick-ass business mentors that are teaching us a lot, and that's the first thing and the first time that anyone has said yes to us on an application. Never mind getting in. It's quite the process. It took us several months, but it's been super cool to just hear yes. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, is there anything I didn't ask you about your business?
Like a little bit of your backstory. Like, where does this new life come from?
Well, yeah,
like
what is
your
new
passion
life?
behind it? Like what?
It feels so diluted now because we've gone through so much to get here. But if we really look at the original part of New Life, is that when we started it, it was it was funny because our group chat starting it was actually called like something about New Life, but we were trying to figure out the name for the business, like what could we call it, what are we gonna do it, like we like yoga, so we're like, oh, we do something yoga-y and something earthy, and then we really just locked in on the fact that was like, what we're trying to do here is not just like, oh, this is a get rich quick scheme, because nobody gets rich in cannabis. Yeah. And so what it was us trying to create a new life for ourselves, because we've all been in emergency response for 18, 20 years, whatever it is. It gets old, right? And we wanted to be with our families and live a life that was, quote unquote, normal. And so we wanted to create a new life for ourselves. And that's really where the brand came from. And so from that, it kind of evolved into seeing so many people kind of get abused in the industry. What we wanted was like to create a new life for us and everyone we are involved with. Like, we just want to make it better. So if we deal with someone, we just want to make their life like a marginally bit better, whether it's our product or us.
You started as firefighters, PCP firefighters.
Correct, yeah.
So were you using cannabis for compassion fatigue at the time?
So up until legalization, the tolerance in our workplace was 0. So you would be drug tested on whenever there's an incident or whatever. So there was 0 tolerance. We could consume on our days off, but there was a certain time limit to basically have to have it run through your system, which sucks because I was turning to sleeping pills and much other stuff when cannabis really was a much better option. But you can take Zopiclone on a work night, or you can take lots of
wine.
Bottle of wine, Ativan, drinking, kicking your dog, whatever. Exactly. There's a lot of other things that were allowed but not cannabis. So I will say that we are not the most avid cannabis users, I think, for multiple reasons. Because one, I'm a lightweight because I haven't been able to really use it for as long, and you're spaced out in between, so if you can only use it a couple times every couple weeks, you just don't really need a lot, right? So you can't gain quite as much passion for it, but being involved in every aspect of it is pretty cool. But we've all had kind of our own different journey with using cannabis or being involved in it or having people in our lives be involved with it. So it's definitely has a deeper meaning than just weed.
So Kirk, interesting guy, definitely sort of the entrepreneurial spirit. He had or possibly still has Brave Fox coffee roasters, so he's started a business from scratch and done stuff. And his description of getting coffee into Sobeys versus getting SKUs, we'll get to that in a second, but I thought that was interesting and relevant. Their sort of main brands are West Coast Gas, which he admitted might have been a poor choice for a brand grown out of Edmonton, but it came from West Coast genetics, so it kind of makes sense. And holy smokes, and I really love right at the beginning when him and his buddies, when they're thinking about this, started with, so you think we can grow some weed in the basement and sell it on Etsy? The answer is no, but it sort of went from there.
Yeah. I have that quote also in my intro that I'm always very interested in how people get into cannabis. How did you stumble into the field? And these guys stumbled into it by saying they wanted to do something different. Maybe we should just grow cannabis and sell it on Etsy. But no, you can't do that before or after legalization. But what surfaced for you from this discussion?
All the hurdles, and probably unnecessary hurdles or growing pains as the cannabis. You think about, as I've heard it, you've heard it, everybody, oh my God, you must just being able to make so much money growing cannabis. And no, it's a heavily, heavily, heavily regulated industry. And each one of those regulations, necessary or not, that you can argue adds a layer of cost and time and everything else to it. That we didn't even get into it much in this discussion, but the taxes are part of those regulations, which, just takes profit right off your bottom line. But he spent a lot of time talking about SKUs and getting. So do you want to talk a little bit about, first what a SKU is and why it matters so much?
Well, you are in the retail business. Define a SKU.
So I think even though the acronym is SKU, so that's why we call it a SKU. So it's just, how many Mars bars are you selling? How many
Under what label? So from a perspective of a computer, your Mars bar will have a SKU of 5674.
It'll have a number associated with it.
Yeah. So the Mars bar, a 5 gram, I don't even know if a Mars bar comes in 5 grams, but a 5 gram Mars bar would have its own individual SKU.
Right. And like he said, in coffee, when Robert sold coffee to Sobeys, it was basically him and Sobeys negotiating. Said, okay, I've got this much coffee of this much type. Will you sell it? Yes, no. Okay, you like my product. Your customers, we're both making money. Everybody's happy. Hey, I've come up with a Christmas blend. Sobeys, no, we don't really want to do seasonal stuff. It screws stuff up. Oh well, I'll just give you a small amount. Well, again, we're negotiating. See how it goes. They put it, sells well. Okay, well next Christmas, yes, we'll do more. So it was a negotiation between the coffee roaster and the people selling it to the public. Not quite between the coffee roaster and the person drinking the coffee, but just sort of no real gatekeeper between the roaster and the retailer. Where in cannabis,
wait, before you get there, let's stick with the SKU concept for a moment. That SKU for that coffee or that Mars bar would follow the manufacturer of the business to another store. Yeah. So my Mars bar SKU would be the same SKU number in one store as in another store, right? The SKU follows the Mars bar.
Well, kinda. Like, I don't think there's any. It should follow to other Sobeys stores, but if you sold it to an independent grocer, they can assign any SKU they want. Like it's just a number. Not a retailing expert, but that's my understanding.
Right.
So
your SKUs in your store would be different than a SKU in a different Shoppers Drug Mart, or
could be. Maybe we all use the same numbering system, maybe we don't, but if you were a chain like a Sobeys, it would be important for you guys every store to have the same accounting system. But there's no reason Sobeys and Extra Foods for grocery stores would have to have the same SKU for this particular brand of coffee.
Right. Okay. All right. So carry on. So what we have in the government industry is the government then has a SKU that they give the licenses.
Yeah, they are and people can write in and say if getting this wrong, but they are the warehouse retailer, and it should be the same whether you are a physical warehouse, like I send it directly from me to a warehouse, the warehouse to the retailer, or like in Manitoba, where my understanding is a virtual warehouse, I sort of have to sell it to the government warehouse, but it doesn't physically go anywhere. Once it's approved and someone orders it, it's shipped directly from the grower to the retailer, I believe, like a virtual warehouse. Never.
Right.
But yeah, then the government is the gatekeeper. They assign the SKUs. And
now, okay, again, before I know where you're going, but I want to build this up here. So now what happens that we've got a federal system that licenses growers federally and also license them as packagers federally. Then now you have the provincial laws, right? And the provincial laws now give individual growers, licensed producers, packagers, how they now can access their provincial markets, right? Because the BC market and how a grower accesses the BC market is different because BC has direct delivery programs, whereas Manitoba does not. In Manitoba, a producer would go directly to the government. The government would then take their product and then put it to the dispensaries. Yeah. And in Alberta again has a little different in the sense the Alberta has the clearinghouse, but it also has it's going to farmgate as well. Yeah. Now this is all important because when we get down to the whole concept of SKUs, is that now the grower is told by the government that they've got a SKU that they can then sell to the government, who can then give to the dispensaries.
Right. And just to clarify, because BC comes up a lot in this, I believe BC has three ways. BC can be direct to a retailer, through a centralized government warehouse, virtual or real, and farmgate. Right. So it sounds like, at least in our let's call it Western Canada, maybe, I don't know about best, but BC seems to have more options than other places.
Okay, now that we've beat this to death,
Okay.
so we have so now that we have this Alberta business in cannabis trying to make money in this environment. And what does the government do?
Well, they want their cut. So, that's not a surprise. And as much as both you and I were surprised that a government can just sort of yank a SKU, because they're the wholesaler, they're the warehouse. And so, because as a consumer, I would be really annoyed if I love Kicking Horse coffee. Sorry, we keep going back to coffee, but I'm drinking a cup. I love Kicking Horse coffee, and if the government decided I couldn't drink Kicking Horse coffee anymore, I'd be annoyed. But same with cannabis. And it gets even worse on the medical side. If I find, strain X really helps me and the government gets rid of it, I would be more than annoyed. But I guess, and again, not trying to be the government apologist, it makes sense if you're a warehouse to, you get 100,000, doesn't matter. Well, for easy math, let's say there's 100 SKUs, there's way more. You look at them and you go, okay, well, what are the worst performing 5 SKUs? They sell the least, they have the most returns, the stores complain about them, and just get rid of them. They will have more complicated metrics than that, but as a warehouse, it makes sense for you. In fact, there's probably someone saying you have to make your warehouse as efficient as possible, make as much money as possible. So, getting rid of the X number of lowest performing SKUs as a warehouse makes perfect sense. Now, it makes a whole lot less sense to the consumer and the retailer and the grower, but as a warehouse, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I just kept sitting there thinking, how does a business brand themselves? Yeah, let's use alcohol, because cannabis and alcohol are often lumped together. Let's use the alcohol analogy here. I understand brewing and I understand distillation processes. So I always marvel at how, big beer companies, big whiskey companies, their whole goal is to ensure that one lot of whiskey or one lot of beer tastes the same
Sure.
as another lot, right? So that's part of the art of being a brewer or distiller. And people, think about this: you got to grow the barley, you got to malt the barley, you got to ensure you use the same hops, and you got to ensure that it ferments the same way, and all the science and the art that goes into creating that product, so that it goes on the shelf. And I go pick up my favorite whiskey because I want that profile. The cannabis industry is not given that luxury. Now you can say that, plants are so difficult, one layer of a flower on a plant to a different flower can be different and all this stuff. But there is an art to growing cannabis. And the growers, you've met growers, they're very proud of their products, right? But how do they brand themselves and get consistent if the government's allowed to pull SKUs and won't allow you to put your product out there consistently?
Well, you can't, but that's part of a larger problem with the government sort of being, in my opinion, sort of terrified of being seen as promoting cannabis. Like you said, if I sell Jameson whiskey, I have to follow certain laws. It's still a regulated industry, but there are ways I can advertise Jameson whiskey, or I can sponsor an event, or I can put on a tasting, or I can, there's a bunch of ways for me to get my advertising, however you want to define it. It doesn't have to be a big TV ad or billboard, but whatever's allowed to put out some ads to say, I make, Jameson whiskey, and here's what's great about it and why you should try it. There's really no easy way that we keep running into for a West Coast gas made by New Life Canna can put on an Ontario-wide blitz of here's why you should try West Coast gas. And so you can't tell them about your product, and even if they sort of spontaneously find your product and really like it, well, now you can't keep giving them what they really like because the government can pull the SKU. Now, yeah, there are, again, I'm not trying to be the government apologist. I can see why as a warehouse you want to do that, but yeah, it doesn't really serve the customers. The current gatekeeping model doesn't really seem to have the customers, the retailers, the grower in mind. It's how to run the most efficient government warehouse is all they seem to be worried about right now.
Sure, and I guess why would a nurse and a pharmacist need to know this?
Well, again, in the medical world, if I find a strain that is really helping my, pick your condition, my epilepsy for my child, and it's working great, and I suddenly don't have access to it, that is a problem.
Yeah, huge problem. But so, I mean, another comment he makes in there, and where does when they're looking for support or they're looking for grants or they're looking for ways to,
I love this one.
Right? So they're looking to support their business and grow their business. And where are they clumped? They're clumped in strip clubs,
payday loans, casinos, strip clubs, and massage parlors.
Yeah. So this is where the cannabis industry is. And I did do a quick Google check about how many craft cannabis licensed producers are still in Alberta compared to not. I don't think any of the ones that we interviewed back in the day in Buyer Beware episode are still in business.
Which is really sad.
It's very sad. And it's just, I don't know who wants to invest in a cannabis business right now.
No, I know. But even Robert was a little hopeful. There are things changing, at least in Alberta. Manitoba seems to be behind. I was reading on StratCan while looking up for this, an article that came out in June that Alberta's now making it you able to send samples to the retailer. The retailer can't sell it, but you can at least physically legally give them samples for them and their staff to try, for them to be able to say, well, I tried X, it tastes great, you should try it, or at least we should bring it in, I think people will like it. Because like in Manitoba right now, it is illegal for a grower to give samples to a retailer, which is, again, another just imagine cookies. I sell cookies, and I can't give people samples to say, just even for marketing purposes. I make 10 cookies, I get 100 people in a room, I give them each one of our cookies. Which do you like the best? Like, you can't do anything like that, which is a little bananas.
Yeah. It is. Well, and it's interesting because as you, in this conversation, you may be aware that one of the things we did is we sat there at a table and we started talking about some of the cannabis that was coming in from British Columbia. Well, he had samples of it out, and he was just in the process of getting to package it and stuff when we walked in on him. So you can hear Kayla talking about we were looking and we were actually touching some bud that they had, and it was some very, very interesting bud. I mean, I've seen grow ups, I've seen bags of pot, but in this little jar I picked up one of the buds and it was a rock. It was a bloody pellet. It was so dense. And he was saying that 2.5% myrcene that he's finding, and that's high because
and in case you missed it during the show, myrcene is a terpene.
A terpene, yeah. And when you start talking about mindful consumption of cannabis, the terpenes are actually more important than the THC. But that will be another episode. But for the cannabis that he's bringing in, it's remarkable how much terpenes was in there. And again, I believe the most prominent terpenes in cannabis are your myrcenes, your limonene, and your caryophyllene. Those are the primary terpenes, and they usually average 1.5%. And this grower was getting 2.5. And like I said, you could hear us talking about it. That's why I'm raising it here. These were some very hard buds, and it wasn't hard because they were dry. They were hard because they were just grown very densely, and the aroma was astounding. So, I mean, New Life Canna is putting out some fine craft cannabis.
Yes. And my last thing on gatekeepers, I know we're all over the place, but just another example he had where, and again, I don't think it's the Alberta warehouse trying to screw people over, but again, there's just no one there sort of saying, hey, this doesn't work for retailers and growers, but that, okay, so let's say New Life came up with a seasonal offering. You know, we have the best Halloween weed out there. We've grown this small batch. We want to try it. If the Alberta warehouse takes 200 cases of this, but 300 retailers want it, they get a lottery.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's not completely unfair. At least everyone's got a shot about getting it. But the 100 who didn't get what they wanted now also basically lost their order. They couldn't order anything to replace it. So again, very efficient for the warehouse, but you know, that's completely disincentivized the retailers for whatever you want to call it, bidding on a seasonal offering, because if they might not get it, and B, if they lose what they can order. Like it's a little bananas.
I first picked up on this phenomena in my road trip. I was in Hope, and I don't know if I mentioned if it's going to be in the interview, but I was in Hope, and I went and visited Marley's Den and met up with Lorraine again. We first met Lorraine in episode 131, Road Trips number 4, where I went and visited her, and she gave me the whole scuttlebutt on the strike, because I think we mentioned the strike in this conversation.
You spent a bunch of time about the strike in the interview, yes.
Yeah, so in future episodes...
Strike in BC, just to keep people
in British
back
Columbia,
up. Yes.
yeah. So in future episodes, we're going to have the voice of Lorraine talking to us more specifically about that. The other episode to remind people about it was episode 78, where we met up with, I think, 4 growers, buyer beware, buyer bewildered, about, what was happening in the commercial licensed producer world in those days, and here we are today.
It
guys
didn't
trying to
get better.
make money. It didn't. Well, he's a very proactive, positive fella. So he really wanted to make it seem like the government is working towards it. And how many times have I been reminded, Kirk, it's just a new product. We have to get used to it. And I'm sorry, I'm a little skeptical. I still believe that there's almighty people out there thwarting cannabis. So yes, my tinfoil hat's on, every level.
I'm going to ignore your tinfoil hat for a second to just a quick thing on, without making this too long, farmgate. I hadn't thought of, if someone wants to do farmgate, fantastic, all more power to you. But I hadn't thought of all the downsides to farmgate to a grower. So, there's the kind of obvious thing, if you now have a store on your premises to sell cannabis out the door, if it's allowed in your province. Again, Manitoba, it is not. BC, it is. Alberta just recently became legal. But so you just now have to basically create and staff a store, so extra headaches, expense. But, that's kind of expected. But most, or how about many, quote-unquote farms aren't really in places where people are. Like this one was in an industrial part of Edmonton and not a lot of foot traffic. Greencraft, I'm not giving anything away because you go try and find it, is in the freaking middle of nowhere outside of Dauphin, which is already the middle of nowhere. I would literally have to draw you a map for you to go stumble across Greencraft cannabis. So you're not going to necessarily get much foot traffic. And not that it's a bad thing. I think all provinces should make it available, but there's only going to be a certain amount type of grower where farmgate will make sense, and for a lot of them it just probably won't, even if it becomes available. So I thought I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I was trying to get to the Guerrilla Gardens. They're in Okotoks. When I was doing this trip, they're the first farm gate operators out of Alberta. And I guess I'm trying to visualize what a farm gate would look like. I mean, you've got your grow op in the back, you got your retail dispenser in the forward. Is it modeled after a brewery where you can look through a glass and see the fermenters? I mean, are they going to allow people to look through glass and see fields of cannabis plants? I don't know. Maybe they can get back to us and tell us how that works, or maybe next time I'm in Okotoks, I'll take a tour.
Nope, that I would love that, and I think the listeners would too. So we've been a little rambly about our discussion, but I really thank you, Robert. Thank you, New Life Canna. This was excellent. Sort of opened our eyes to, unfortunately, the not surprising thing that it's not easy to make money growing cannabis. Anything we missed?
I don't know. I don't think so. Probably when we hang up, we'll figure out something. But no, this was good. This was good.
All right.
I enjoyed this.
So I'm Trevor Schufelt. I'm the pharmacist. I do think I remember to say that at the beginning of the podcast. Who are you?
I'm Kirk Nyquist. I'm the registered nurse, and we are Reefer Medness, the podcast, found at reefermed.ca. I ask people to go to our website so that you can learn about us. Yes, we're found on Spotify. Yes, we're found on iTunes. Yes, we're found on most podcast platforms. But our webpage is so much more interesting.
And Kirk spends a lot of time keeping it that way.
I do, and you can listen to it. You can listen to us. You can also view us. I've set our website up for all types of learners. You can read about us, watch us, hear us. It's all there for all types of learners. You can also go to YouTube. We're everywhere. Just find us and tell a friend.
Absolutely. Tell a friend. It's been another good one. We'll talk to everybody later.
Check out the complete library of Reefer Medness episodes at reefermed.ca. And make sure to follow us on all the socials for bonus info on what Trevor and Kirk are up to.
All right.
Okay.
So stop.
Recording stop. Yes, I want to stop. Recording